My boss stood beside my wife as she held a thick envelope against her chest. He wasn't just standing there, he was holding her hand like he'd earned the right to replace me. Every conversation in the office stopped. Heads turned toward us. My co-workers watched in complete silence. She slid the envelope across my desk. "I think it's time," she said. I looked down without touching it. I already knew what was inside. Divorce papers. What surprised me wasn't the envelope. It was the man standing beside her. My boss, Daniel Carter, had spent the last 3 years calling me one of the most reliable employees he'd ever hired. Now he stood behind my wife with a confident smile, as if my life had become a meeting he planned to win. Neither of them noticed that I wasn't angry. I wasn't shocked either. I simply looked at Daniel, then at my wife, Emily, and quietly said 3 words. "Are you sure?" The smile on Daniel's face didn't change. Emily laughed under her breath. "Sign the papers, Ethan," she replied. "Let's stop pretending." Around us, nobody moved. A few people awkwardly looked away. Others kept pretending to work while listening to every word. If you've ever watched someone you trusted become a complete stranger, you already know how painfully quiet those moments can feel. 6 years earlier, Emily and I had promised each other we'd never let money or success change who we were. Back then, I believed promises actually meant something. Apparently, I was the only one. Daniel folded his arms. "Let's keep this professional," he said. "Nobody wants unnecessary drama." Professional. That word almost made me smile, because nothing about this situation was professional. 3 months earlier, Daniel had started giving me fewer projects. Meetings happened without me. Promotions I had already earned suddenly disappeared. Every decision pushed me one step closer to the edge, but I couldn't understand why. Now the answer was standing right in front of me. Emily wasn't leaving because our marriage had failed. She already had someone waiting. She reached for a pen and placed it beside the envelope. "This will be easier if you don't fight it." I picked up the pen. Several co-workers quietly shook their heads, probably expecting me to explode. Instead, I calmly signed exactly where she pointed. Emily blinked. Daniel looked almost disappointed. Neither of them realized that the signature they wanted was the least important document I had prepared that week. Because hidden inside my briefcase was something neither of them knew existed, and before this day ended, everything they believed about me and about each other was about to fall apart. Emily took the signed papers without even looking at me. She smiled at Daniel as if everything had gone exactly as planned. "I knew he'd make this easy," she said. Daniel nodded. "Some people know when they've already lost." A few quiet laughs came from the far side of the office. They weren't cruel. They were uncomfortable. Nobody wanted to be caught in the middle. I closed my briefcase and stood. "I'll clear my desk," I said calmly. Daniel looked satisfied. "Take the rest of the day." I simply nodded. As I walked toward my office, my phone vibrated. It was a message from my attorney. "The documents have been filed. Don't discuss anything until after the board meeting." I locked the screen before anyone could see it. For weeks, everyone believed I was too distracted by problems at home to notice what was happening at work. They thought I never questioned why major clients suddenly disappeared from my projects. They assumed I accepted every decision without asking why. They were wrong. 3 months earlier, one client had accidentally thanked me for a proposal I had never seen. That single conversation changed everything. At first, I thought it was a simple mistake. Then another client mentioned a contract with my electronic signature, except I had never signed it. That was the moment I stopped trusting coincidence. Instead of confronting Daniel, I quietly started collecting records, emails, internal reports, approval logs, security access times. I never took anything that didn't belong to me. I only saved copies of documents I was authorized to access. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Someone had been moving my work to another department while making it appear that I had approved every change. And somehow, every trail pointed back to Daniel. The strangest part? Emily suddenly stopped asking about my day at work. Instead, she already seemed to know which meetings I had missed, and which projects had failed. At first I blamed stress. Then I started asking myself a question I never wanted to ask. How did she know things I hadn't even told her? A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. It was Linda from Human Resources. She stepped inside and quietly closed the door. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, "but I think you deserve to know something." She placed a small flash drive on my desk. "I found this in the wrong folder during an internal audit. I was told to ignore it." My heartbeat slowed instead of racing. "When?" "2 weeks ago." "Who told you?" She looked toward the hallway before answering. "I can't say yet." Then she left. I stared at the flash drive for several seconds before plugging it into my laptop. The first file opened. It wasn't a financial report. It wasn't an email. It was security camera footage. And the very first person who appeared on the screen wasn't Daniel. It was Emily. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. The timestamp showed a Saturday afternoon, nearly a month earlier. The office should have been empty. Emily walked through the front entrance using a temporary visitor badge. She looked around, then headed straight toward the executive floor. A minute later, Daniel stepped out of his office and greeted her like this wasn't their first meeting. They hugged. Not the kind of awkward hug between strangers, the kind that came from familiarity. I kept watching. They disappeared into Daniel's office. 28 minutes later, they walked out carrying a stack of folders. Daniel handed Emily one file before they split up in different directions. There was no audio. I couldn't hear a single word, but I didn't need to. This wasn't an accident. Someone had intentionally kept my wife involved in something happening inside my workplace. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. For weeks, I had blamed myself. I wondered if I had worked too much, if I had missed signs at home, if my marriage had slowly fallen apart while I was chasing deadlines. Now I realized I had been asking the wrong questions. The problem wasn't that I had trusted too much. The problem was that I had trusted the wrong people. My phone rang again. It was my attorney. "The board meeting starts in 40 minutes, she said. "Are you ready?" "I think so." "Remember, don't accuse anyone. Let the evidence speak." "I understand." After ending the call, I copied every file from the flash drive onto an encrypted folder and slipped the drive back into my pocket. A few minutes later, there was another knock. Daniel walked in without waiting for an answer. "I heard you're leaving early," he said with a smile. "So I've been told." He looked around my office. "It's unfortunate things ended this way." I studied his face carefully. He looked confident, comfortable, like a man who believed every loose end had already been tied up. "I hope you find peace," he added. "I already have," I replied. For the first time that day, his smile faded. Just a little. "What does that mean?" "It means some stories don't end where people expect." Neither of us said another word. He turned and walked away. As soon as the door closed, my laptop chimed. A new email had arrived. Board of Directors, emergency agenda update. I opened it. The meeting had been moved forward. Attendance was now mandatory for every senior manager, including Daniel. I slowly closed my laptop. The divorce papers were already signed. That battle was over. But the meeting about to begin had nothing to do with my marriage. It was about something far bigger. And before anyone walked out of that boardroom, one person was going to discover that the evidence they thought had disappeared had been waiting for them all along.